A little while ago now on my Instagram, I asked the question whether or not you guys would be interested to find out about the on-call fire service fitness test, how my experience was on the day and what I did to train for it. A lot of you guys seem to be interested, so I hope you enjoy this video. Now the first thing they will get you to do is a bleep test. It's a 20-meter bleep test where you have to get up to level 8.6 to pass.
Start of level 8.
Amazingly, the police is only 5.4. Exactly why that is, I don't know. I've yet to go to a fire which has ever outrun me, but I've seen plenty of videos online of police being outrun by criminals. But that's none of my business. To actually train to pass the bleep test, I didn't do any shuttle runs before. I read that to get to the 8.6, if you can run 1.5 miles in 12 minutes or under, you're pretty much going to get there. So at the end of every gym session and on certain runs that I went on, I would make sure that I'd do 1.5 miles in 12 minutes or less. In the end, I was smashing this time again and again, and every time I've done the bleep test since, I've been able to get to the 8.6 mark. And I really think this was because of the training that I put in there.
A few moments later.
Start of level 10.
Another part of the day is the equipment carry. There is a lot of equipment that we hold on a fire engine. And if you go to a certain job where you have to park the fire engine far away, say the closest hydrant is a long distance away from the fire and that's it, that's where you have to stay, or if it's not safe to get any closer, you may find yourself rolling out hose and carrying lots of equipment back and forth. I've been there before myself on jobs and I can promise you this is one of the most tiring things, especially when you put the full gear on. As much as it's comfortable, by the time you put the boots, the helmet and everything else on, if you've got the heat of the fire and the fact that you're carrying all the equipment, you do get fatigued very quickly. So this equipment test is a really important part of the day, I feel. They will give you a set order in which you are meant to do things. You get an allocated time to see if you can pass. Some of the things that you need to do is run the hose reel off the fire engine, carry 2 lines of hose, carry a 30-kilogram barbell, and also a basket and a suction line. From memory, these are some of the things that I did on the day, but don't quote me on this, it might have changed, you never know. The whole day itself is really, really supportive. Things like the bleep test, you'd find that people would be cheering on anyone who started to struggle, trying to get them to get to the finish line. The same with the equipment carry. While you're waiting for your turn, you'd be cheering on the person in front of you to try and help them to achieve the time. This sort of camaraderie is something that you'll find throughout the fire service. So it's really, really good that from the early stages, even just doing the fitness test, that everyone has this instilled in them. Ultimately, you're a team and you want everyone to pass. Something that some people do struggle with is height, and the thought of having to climb ladders to join the fire service holds them back. There is a ladder test. There will be a 135 ladder that is put up and you will climb up to the 2nd story. They'll teach you exactly how to climb up and down a ladder before, so you do this safely. And they'll also teach you how to perform something called a leg lock. Effectively, this is putting one of your legs through 2 rounds on the ladder so you can lock yourself in and lean away from the ladder and be completely hands-free. I tried to film myself doing this at a recent drill night, but unfortunately we could only do it on a 105 ladder. The higher up the ladder you go, the runs themselves get a lot smaller, so it was actually impossible for me to try and perform a leg lock on the 2nd story. I did manage to do it lower down the ladder though, just to show you exactly what it looks like when you can remove both hands from the ladder and lean back. So then effectively you do the leg lock and you look over either shoulder with your hands completely away from the ladder. There will be someone holding a shape and a colour below. So it might be on your left shoulder, red circle, on your right shoulder, green triangle. Once you've identified what the person below is holding, you can then put yourself back onto the ladder, undo yourself from the leg lock and climb safely down. There were a few people on the day that I did my fitness test who did struggle a little bit with this. They obviously weren't comfortable with heights. It is pretty scary, I can't lie. When you first go up, if you're not someone who has worked in an environment like that before, it can feel quite uncomfortable. In time, this is something that you'll get more and more confident being able to do, and working at heights is something that won't scare you as much. In my opinion, one of the easier tests was the casualty evacuation. You'll get a dummy like this, but actually double the size. This is only 20 kilos. You'll be putting around a 55 kilo dummy around a 30-meter course. You'll grab them from behind and walk backwards. This is timed, so you will have to be able to do it quickly, but I don't think anyone on the day I was there failed this. It genuinely was one of the more easy things to do. But again, a really important part of the job to make sure that you have the strength in your legs and your upper body to be able to pull a weight in this way if needed. Just bear in mind that when it comes down to the fitness test, the one you'll be pulling is a lot bigger and heavier. One of the tests that I found slightly more difficult was the confined space crawl. Effectively, you're in an enclosed unit over 2 levels. You either need to crawl through things like cylinders, or there'll be a diagonal space which you've got to crawl through, where either the bottom left is shut off or the top right. There might even be parts where you're crawling through and you need to drop to the bottom and crawl underneath a section or climb over the top. I appreciate it's quite hard to explain without seeing it, but I don't have any footage of me doing anything like this. You then need to drop down a level and crawl all the way back through and come out. Once you've completed this, they will then put a full face cover on you, which is completely blacked out. And you then have to crawl all the way back through the course in reverse, climb back up and through all the obstacles within an allocated time to pass. Now, when they first put the mask on me, I must admit, it did take me a second and I did start to slightly panic. As soon as it come on, not only could you not see, but I found it quite difficult to breathe. But despite the fact that it was timed, all I did was take a couple of seconds to myself just to compose myself and crawl back through. You can remember a lot of the route, but when you've got your full kit on, it does make that space feel even tighter, especially if you're a big guy like myself. As soon as you manage to leave the obstacle, they stop the time and you find out whether you did it quick enough. Thankfully I did, but again, I'll hold my hands up and be honest, this is one of the ones that I didn't feel most comfortable with. I'm definitely not claustrophobic, but if you do get put in a confined space and you can't see where you're going, it does naturally make you feel a little bit nervous, I feel. They will also ask you to do a ladder lift on the day. Now, they have a piece of equipment used for this, where effectively you curl up a bar and you push it above your head and it needs to clear 1.9 meters. The weight that they use is approximately 30 kilos, so my best advice is get yourself in the gym, make sure that you can curl a 30 kilo barbell, and also make sure that you can press that above your head. As long as you're able to do this, it will be a straight up pass. Things like this, where you can properly train for, I urge that you make sure that you go into the fitness test day knowing that there's no doubt you'll fail it. Stuff like the ladder lift and the bleep test can be easily trained for at home. You don't really need any sort of specialist equipment to make sure that you can do it. Now lastly, and my absolute nemesis, is the manual dexterity test. They'll get a piece of equipment that is used from the fire engine. You'll enter in a small booth so no one else can see what the equipment is, and there'll be instructions in pictures and writing on the wall in front of you. All of the pieces will be lined out in separate sections, and you have to then take those, put it all together, then take it all apart and put them all back in their sections. Now, the piece of equipment that I use was really old, and I was fixated on making sure that I put it together really tight and well. This ended up being my downfall. I ended up tightening and tightening each and every little bit of this equipment, and over the years it obviously got worn and didn't seem to want to fit up as well as it should do. By the time I then got to a stage, I thought, well, this is ridiculous, it's not going to get any tighter, and I took it all apart and put it all back in its sections. I unfortunately was told that I didn't do it quick enough. I was absolutely gutted. That's a straight up fail for the rest of the day. I got through all of the fitness side of things, I trained really hard to make sure that I was physically ready, and then all of a sudden they put a piece of equipment in front of me and my hands let me down. Now, my advice, if you do this, is do not take too long trying to tighten things up. On my second time, I managed to get this thing together and take it apart with about 10 seconds to spare. I think I just went into it with the wrong mindset on exactly what sort of standards you needed to have this equipment in to pass. I was so disappointed when I failed, but I made sure that I come back, I picked myself up, and I got through the whole thing again, and I passed. And I must admit, it was so satisfying to get through second time round. So the moral of the story is don't give up. Now, I will say that this was all in my experience over a year ago now. Some of the things may have changed, some of the standards may have changed, they might get you doing different things, but this is just my experience and what I did to get myself fit and ready for the day, and just a little bit of insight in what they'll get you to do. Joining the fire service on call has been absolutely amazing, and I've loved every minute of it. I am considering doing future videos, so if there's anything else that you'd like to know, whether that's about the interview process and the training course that you go through, what it's like being on call especially and how it affects your life, just any sort of Q&A stuff that you want to go through even. If you want to get in touch with me on my Twitter or my Instagram, let me know what your thoughts are, get in the comments and let me know what you think of the video. If this does well, I'll definitely do future content around different parts of the fire service so that you guys know exactly what we get up to.